For the students who can't cut the academic world, though, there's very little apprenticeships, there's very little alternative pathways for them. So if they happen to have any talent, that is the industry they go into. And it is an industry. And I don't think people understand outside of Korea what K-pop is. It is an industry like any other. They are trained from very young age for a job they're going to do. Welcome back. Hi, Linda. Today, let's have a chat because I came across, we became mutuals, but we didn't really tell people how. Are we willing to discuss how we came across each other on social media and for our mutual appreciation of a particular type of genre? Do you want to tell the world? I mean, we're sort of a little bit of a different age group to the majority of this genre's fans, but do you want to tell the world, how did we meet?
Taeyong, NCT. No, but it's true.
Yeah.
Taeyong, NCT.
Yeah,
I'm not ashamed.
I
See
agree.
I'm not ashamed. At any age, you can appreciate talent.
Exactly. And it was our mutual appreciation for primarily Taeyong's talent, but also him with his group NCT. And then obviously you get into the wider net of other K-pop groups. And so that is how we met, and we had a mutual understanding. And obviously we talked about other things. I mean, that is obviously where our connection became realized, but then obviously we started talking about other things, and that's how we built on this connection. But I thought it was interesting, considering our K-pop history, that we could discuss K-pop today, and the fact that one of the groups I really, really appreciate is actually going to play Paris in 2 weeks, where you are.
I know.
And I'll be visiting you on that weekend, and we discussed whether we should go to this concert or not, and some of our reservations as to why perhaps we won't. Do you want to fill us in?
The group name is Atiz.
Mm,
One of my favorite groups.
mm.
The only I would love to see them live. For sure, I would love, because they're so talented, and I know a few of their songs. I mean, some of their songs, and I'd like to see them live. Like performing them live, not on a screen. I'm scared about, I don't like big crowds in general. And there's something violent about it in my mind. I mean, I know it's not real, but there's something violent about big crowds. And the screaming fans, a lot of them will come because they love their music. And a lot of them will come because they're in love with this one or this one or this one.
And the average age will be probably 19 average age.
Yeah, which is okay. They're
Mm,
19,
yeah,
20.
yeah.
They have a crush on an artist. I'm not going to judge them for that. But I say, okay, I would love if they had made one evening, all of these groups in a smaller venue.
Yeah. I have seen ATs, and when I lived in Korea last year, we were invited. Our school had special tickets, connections. Our school's in the area where all of these sort of music shows happen. Now, if anyone's into K-pop, and anyone who's watching probably isn't, but MBC and all these sort of big sort of production houses are in one concentrated area called Digital Media City. And that's where our school was located, and that's where I lived. I've seen a lot of I'll tell you about Squid Game in a moment too. But our school was invited to this idol radio, and World Cup Park is where the World Cup Stadium was when Seoul hosted the World Cup with Japan. So the World Cup Stadium was built, and this whole area is called World Cup area. And that's where they had the concert. And they had numerous artists there. I think NMIX was there, a couple of these K-pop groups, but ATEEZ was there. And so by luck, I didn't have to pay, and I got to see them in this big stadium. And of course, in a big stadium, you lose them. They're about this big. So you end up having to watch the big screen, but you lose a lot of the choreo. But it was a wonderful vibe, and the boys are fabulously talented. But you're right, in a small venue, I would love to see them in a small venue, because then you get to see the choreography up close. And I think that's what makes K-pop quite special. Even for old timers like us, there is something very unique about the K-pop experience. Do you agree?
Completely. I discovered K-pop, like I'm sure 90% of the new fans of K-pop. I mean, when I say new, the past 7 years, with BTS. One of their videos was suggested to me by YouTube or something, so I went on it, and I liked it. So I watched another, of their MVs, and another one, and another. And my niece, who's very much younger than me, when I told her, she says, "Oh, Tata, no, you don't know K-pop. That's not K-pop. Let me introduce you to K-pop." And she was a fan when she was like, she grew up in LA, and at age 12 or something, with a few friends of hers, they were like crazy K-pop fans, but old K-pop, not the new K-pop. I mean, when I say old K-pop, I exaggerate, but they're not that old. But TVXQ,
Yeah.
Shiny, I mean,
Bit 2000s,
yeah,
2000s K-pop.
2000, Shiny. She's a huge fan of Shiny and Big Bang, and she made me discover Big Bang. And it's true that Big Bang for me is very, very unique, in the K-pop genre. And then I discovered EXO through that, and she told me about EXO, and then EXO became my favorite. I think EXO is one of the best K-pop group. I mean, they're all talented. There's nobody in the K-pop industry that's not talented. They are going through some very, very gruesome training and selections, and they all are musicians. I mean, they all are related to that, to the art. But, you know, it's something that you can't explain. You're going to like an artist. And then from EXO, I discovered, I'm going to say Taeyong. Because I became a fan of NCT 127. I'm not going to say that the other members of 127 are not good. I love Jaeyoon, and I mean, Utah, and I mean, but Taeyong, you just can't miss him.
Well, I have to say I agree. I wanted to ask because I mean we are of a certain age, so we have gone through various iterations of groups we love, and we go back to the groups we grew up with. And I'm curious to know what was it about K-pop that caught your attention? That first BTS video, because
BTS.
the first time I saw them, I mean I knew of K-pop, and it was this thing that was out there somewhere. I had students back in the 2000s who had K-pop idols on their workbook covers, and I would just shrug and go, "It's a something alien to me, right? I no experience with it." And I was watching Graham Norton one day. This is back in 2017, 2018, so it was about 7 years ago now, also. And Idol was on by BTS. They performed it live, and I was blown away. And I can't quite work out what it was that blew me away. I think it was their choreography. I have to say, it was the synchronized choreography, their precision that blew me away, and the fact that the music was very catchy and poppy. It wasn't some. Honestly, I don't even know what I thought K-pop was in my imagination. Maybe, who knows? But it blew me away. And then, of course, I did like you, the deep dive. I went straight into. Then I went to the MV of Idol and realized it was bright colors and these MVs that K-pop does very well with their concepts. And then, of course, straight through the BTS catalog, which led me to all sorts of different directions. And then nothing for a while. I mean, it died down. My girls loved it. The girls were introduced to K-pop. They started to like it. Blackpink was very popular, but I wasn't too, sorry, Blinks, but I wasn't too keen on Blackpink. In fact, I noticed that it was the boy groups that got my attention more, probably because their choreography was so much more challenging and therefore more synchronized. And I really love watching dance shows like So You Think You Can Dance. I found the boy groups with much stronger choreography, and so I was drawn to them. And then I was in France. Isn't that funny? I was in France just before COVID hit. So it was February 2020. And I think BTS had just released On, one of their later ones. And I got caught, I'm stuck in the hotel room for a while, and I got caught in a loop watching all those, and then Black Swan coming on. So I was blown away by the choreography. And somewhere down there, I went to a BBC show about K-pop. So I started watching, and on that was all about SM, Lee Suman, and of course Super M. And that was it. That was
Oh
the
yeah.
first time I
Oh
saw
yeah,
it. The
yeah,
first time I saw Taeyang was in Super M. It was not actually in NCT. And I was blown away. I think it was more, it was the precise choreography, the catchy pop. It was just, I mean, I'm a sucker for old school pop. And if you give me Italo disco from the mid 80s, I'll love it because I love it all. I love it. So it had a blend of all of this sort of Euro pop meets something else. And it was just, yeah, That was it for me. But it's a very difficult genre to explain to people of our age that you're interested in it, because for them it's just something that teenage girls and young prepubescents are interested in. Which circles me back to, what was it about you? What grabbed your attention? Because obviously something,
Right?
as a woman who loves music and
Yeah.
it has a plethora of artists that you're into and you've seen live, how is it that a boy group from Korea caught your attention?
Yeah, because I was never into boy bands. I mean, I grew up listening, their songs were on the radio all the time. I mean, who doesn't know Backstreet Boy or N6 songs have been thrown into another planet. So, but it was never the kind of genre. I enjoyed it. It's
Mm,
pleasant. It's not the kind of genre that I would buy a record, an album or go to a concert. Let's put it that way. But doesn't take away anything from their talent. I enjoy them more today than when I was younger, as a matter of fact. Is it a nostalgia, phenomenon? I don't know. But I enjoy them maybe more now. I don't know what really attracted me. I think it was the show. It's like a mini show,
mm,
but with good music, a good production,
mm,
and talent.
mm.
I mean, and talent in front of your eyes. BTS, I think it's BTS who really. There were always fans of K-pop, I think, but I think BTS really opened the genre for all the other groups. I mean, to the world,
Yeah,
introduced
a
it to
global mainstream.
a
Yep.
global.
Mm.
I'm sorry, they have good songs, pleasant songs to listen to, and like you say, the choreography and also, I mean, it's very. The K-pop genre is something that's really conceptualized to perfection.
Mm.
Nothing is left to improvisation. The look, the style, the choreography, the music, the melody, the construction of the track, how they build a track and everything. So it's an industry that's really perfected the genre, the pop genre, to make it also something not only for the ears but for the eyes. And I think that's maybe what attracted. I don't know what I can't remember, but I remember that I was telling all my friends about it. They were making fun of me. I remember I was like,
Yeah.
no, but you have to see this guy V and that and this one and blah blah blah. And then there is something, and I think they're very smart. I mean, the K-pop industry lords are super, super, super smart because everything around it is built for you to have that kind of almost personal connection, which is unreal, which is completely an illusion, but you kind of get drawn into it.
I
I
think
don't.
that's one of the pitfalls of the K-pop world too, isn't it? I mean, the formula is a winning formula, but it isn't just the artists and the production. I mean, the production is exceptional, it's stellar. The synchronized choreography is stellar. The training and development that these kids go through is incredible. I mean, to get them to this level, there's no room for even a percent of error. There's no room for error whatsoever. So, and in a country like Korea, which has quite a competitive culture, and in a country like Korea where work is, you either work for the big companies or you work for the government, or you're in a bit of trouble, right? So, in order to secure an income and a future for yourself, you have to be super, super bright and study like mad. And they do. They study like crazy to get accepted into the top universities so they can at least qualify for one of the top jobs. For the students who can't cut the academic world, though, there's very little apprenticeships, there's very little alternative pathways for them. So, if they happen to have any talent, that is the industry they go into. And it is an industry. And I don't think people understand outside of Korea what K-pop is. It is an industry like any other. They are trained from very young age for a job they're going to do. They just happen to be artists. Yes. Are they made into artists, or were they always going to be talented dancers, singers, musicians, artists? That is debatable. That's something where you need some sort of study and you need to do the research in. And I'm not sure if that exists, but they can turn them into anything, and they are trained for a job. And I don't think when we look at NSYNC and the New Kids on the Block, I mean, I've seen New Kids on the Block reunite now in their 50s. They still have their old fans, but these guys were friends. It's a bit like the Spice Girls, acquaintances and friends. You came together from a different place. These K-pop groups are put together. They are trained for a job, and then they are put together by management, and they're forced to become a team. And some of them do it very well and some don't do it very well. As you can see, some fall apart, break apart because there's too many egos. They're not naturally friends. They were put together to work together. So I think what people don't see, they see the polish like we did, and what they don't see is that this is an industry. This is kids training for a job, because in a world where there's so much competition for good jobs, this one can at least secure them a solid income. I mean, they become very, very wealthy if they can make it. And that is the motivator in that culture why they work so hard. Because I don't think anyone in the West would have put up with half of what these kids have put up with. I don't believe so. I don't believe in the individualized culture of the West. No one would have put up with that level of, I don't want to say abuse, but it is abusive a lot of the time. They wouldn't have. They would have quit. They would have said, stuff you, I'm going to go on Spotify, or I'm going to do my own thing. Whereas in Korea, it's not. They work. So what we are seeing at the end result, whether it's Blackpink, whether it's Le Sserafim, whether it's Red Velvet, it doesn't matter who it is, we're seeing a polished group that has been trained to do this from a very young age, as you know. So I'm going to ask you, because you've brought this up a few times, how is it that parents permit their children to be put in such a grueling environment? And why would they do it?
Okay, you said it. Okay, there's not many option for them to have a job that's gonna be rewarding financially. So maybe they push their kids in the hope that they'll be rich and famous. Some parents, they leave their fantasies. I mean, they use their kids to live their own fantasies. I think some of the kids want to be. Echan, for example, I think his parents are both musicians, if I'm not. Lived in that environment of music, and you see it in his singing. He's really, I mean, he's an incredible he has an incredible delivery. His vocals tell the story. I mean, these guys are, we cannot take away their talent. It would be just and unfair. You can like the genre or not like the genre, but you can appreciate talent. Because you are one of, I think, with my sister and my brothers, and some people that I don't know, one of the most knowledgeable person I know in music. No, truly, I admire you. I mean, you've introduced me to so many musicians and artists that I didn't know. I've discovered so much with you, and I love your taste. You have great taste and knowledge. And for those who think that K-pop is like an under category of music, I mean, musically, I'm talking musically, creatively, you who really love um, music, good music. I'm gonna say the word good music. I'm interested to how. I'm not talking about the choreography and everything, but musically, what attracted you? You said it before. This K-pop, this pop, 80s and 90s pop kind of revival that they brought in.
I think for me, I am a sucker for Eurovision, right? So there'll be
Yeah.
people who love or hate Eurovision, and I love it because it showcases what is popular in a particular country at that time, a snapshot in time. And no, a lot of the time it's not mainstream. It's not Western pop music. If you took the Billboard, it would not be anywhere in there. But I've always had a love listening to pop music from various cultures, and Eurovision gives me that. And what I find with a lot of K-pop music, it reminds me a lot of Eurovision tracks. In fact, so many of them, I would
Oh
say, oh
yeah.
my God, if this was at Eurovision, it would win. It would win. And I think that's one thing. The other thing is really is a fusion, because when you look at the producers and the writers and the composers, and sometimes the K-pop artists themselves are contributing to this, but a lot of the time they're not. They are literally the delivery. The behind of what's being put together is really truly is an international group of musicians and producers coming together to work on these projects. And I guess if they're willing to come and work on these projects, there must be a reason why. And I think it's one, anything goes. They're willing to tackle any genre. They're willing to fuse anything. They're willing to experiment with new sounds, because it doesn't really matter. The marketing around the group will sell, will make the company money. They're not interested in number one hits. They're not interested in charting in the United States. They're not interested in that. They don't need it. Just inside the Korean market alone is enough for them. So they're willing to experiment and play with sounds. And I think that's something that I really appreciate, because you don't get that level of risk taking in music in the West. It's very formulaic. If you just take anything, take from Billie Eilish to Taylor Swift to Ariana to even Dua Lipa, it's very formulaic, and it has to sell and it has to hit the mainstream. And there's a formula for pop music. I don't know if K-pop follows it because it's more willing to take risks. And I think that's what I'm attracted to. It's the risk taking in music. It's hearing layers of sound and production that I wouldn't normally hear.
That's true.
Which, I don't know, unless you have a musical ear, you may or may not know what I'm talking about. Music producers out there might, but when you hear levels and layers, when you start pulling apart a track and you hear the bass line and you start pulling it back, and when you see how it's put together, it's quite unique in K-pop. So that's the reason why it attracts me. Now, am I going to call it, I mean, is it up there with Beethoven? Probably not. Okay. Is it up there with even, your classic artists like the Beatles and everyone else? Of course not. But it has some value in our modern world. And I think it's that experimentation and that risk taking. I find K-pop very risk taking, even though it sounds ridiculous, because they all seem to follow a very polished pattern and there's no risks at all, right? Not with their artists. There's no risk in screwing up your choreography or nothing. But I think when it comes to the production and putting the final thing together, they are willing to take risks with their concepts, with their design, with the music. I mean, NCT was called noise music, right? There's a reason why it's called noise music, because to the untrained ear, it just feels like a mishmash of noise and
Yeah.
rapping and then layers of vocals. And 1 minute we're here, next minute we've changed lanes and gone in the other direction, and we're into some melodic R&B track. You can have an R&B track with a rap track and with, I don't know, traditional Euro pop mushed in together somewhere, and it creates a sound. And I think that's something that I appreciate, if you want to know the truth here. Like I said, and it's there's so much of it. I mean, there's so many. I mean, I will listen to that K-pop 100 on the YouTube. It'll last 40 minutes, it goes for 100 tracks that are charting at that time. There are so many groups and artists out there, and they're only operating inside the Korean market. There's no, this is not music made for the mainstream or for the global world. I mean, unless they're big enough like Blackpink now, but these artists are all just Korean market alone, and they make enough money just from the Korean market.
Japan also, I think they're. Well, it's a different market, but they do.
Mm.
It's a market that they want, that they are. They've been not now. I don't know what's the name of this uh, SM K-pop female artist that started at 14 or 15.
Boa.
I think Boa started being famous in Japan. I don't know. I think that's where
They
they
marketed her from
they
Japan back
marketed
in.
her in Japan. Yeah.
Hmm.
The thing is that you're right. I think it's a dream for a producer to work on a K-pop album, on a K-pop project. It's a dream because they have that. It's funny because it's such, like you said, it's such a almost sterilized, where everything is thought and perfected and noted and everything, but you feel that the producers there's a freedom there to explore, like you said, to explore different sounds, and NCT's one of the, I mean, it's the experimental group by excellence. I mean, music wise and production wise. So they have a lot of foreign producers, American producers, and Swedish producers, and British producers. And one of the reaction video that I follow, they called the report card, and they're mostly R&B, aficionados. And it's true that I don't know where SM. I'm talking about the B-side tracks, okay, not the
Track.
title track, but the B-sides. And one of them was saying, where do they find these producers? Because it's perfect R&B. I mean, SM, I think, has the best B-sides personally. Also, I think they have the best vocalist. I think that was Lee Suman probably main focus. I think he likes a good vocalist, and I think he likes R&B because I think he studied in America or something like that, and I think he was very influenced by the sound there at that time. But they have the best, and it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure to hear one of these songs. I mean, NCT B-sides, I think,
Mm.
are the most beautiful B-sides.
Mm.
Um, EXO too.
Yeah, I do like X.
And I'm not taking away from the other groups because I think that Atis has incredible vocalists. I mean, all of these groups have. I like Atis because I think, like you told me yesterday, because we're talking about them, they're unique. Like every member is important. I'm not saying that in the other group they're not, but you always have somebody that you see there's a leader, there's somebody who's up front there, you know, most of the time. Atis, although no, the vocalists are incredible. It's true that the two rappers are, for me, they are one of the best rap duo in the industry. In the K-pop, it's funny because Atis is not a group I would put in the K-pop category. Group is a music group. It's a musical group. They have a sound that's so particular at the first sound, at the first vocal note.
Mm.
I'll tell
Uh,
you it's Atis.
I think ATs also is almost like a decade-long project. If you know anything about ATs, there is a origin story. I mean, all of these K-pop groups have these conceptual worlds they build, right? NCT, that's Lee Soo-man's vision was that's what NCT was, that they create this group, not of individual artists, but a group, a unit that comes together and has an origin story and goes through these conceptual evolutions, right? And these evolutions are sometimes a social commentary. Sometimes, I mean, ATs is very big on social commentary or some sort of whatever it is that their concept is for that given comeback. And every time, and it's usually quite dark. If you look at ATs'
Yes.
discography and their concepts are very dystopian. I mean, if you could say they're the dystopian group, they are the group that deals with the future that is uncertain and rather dark and gloomy
Yeah,
and
and there is also rebellious.
totally, yes, there's a rebellion
There is,
and
you know, for me, they're like the bad boys of K-pop. I mean, not the bad boys in that sense, but you know, because the image of K-pop is that perfection, pretty people, everything is pretty, you know.
well,
Uh,
they are very, very pretty. Don't get me wrong. They, if
no,
anyone
no,
looks at it,
no, no. I'm not talking about physically. I'm
mm,
talking about usually,
mm,
you know, the image.
mm.
And not the old K-pop. The old K-pop was quite dark, and I liked it because it was like every music video was like a mini movie. You know, you were exploring something, not only the music but also the story. Uh,
ATs does that very well. Each of
80,
their
80,
comebacks
80s,
does the same thing. That very much you're
exactly,
like watching a mini movie here, and it's epic.
exactly. And I mean, it's funny because I discovered them, I think, with Pirate King. I think it's the first song that I've listened, and then I became an NCT 127 fan mainly because of Taeyong. I'm gonna be very honest. Even though I like their tracks and everything, but it was Taeyong's, you know, performance, visual. I mean, he's not only very attractive because he's attractive, because you can be pretty and attractive and not be attractive. You know what I mean? There's layers in Taeyong. You can see through the layers. I mean, almost, you know.
Mm.
But she's with NCT. I remember once I put it on a comment and I said I'm a NCT 127 fan, but and an EXO fan. I'm totally an EXO fan. But I said, but I love Atis as well. I think they're one of the best. And the fans of Atis, like, they thanked me. Oh, I'm so happy that you see what we see. Whatever. I don't do it to get likes. I don't care. I find K-pop fandoms to be quite toxic and mean people, mean spirited people.
I do, I do,
Usually,
I do.
usually,
I want to
usually.
talk about the fandom actually next. So I want to actually talk about it is because this is what is the most off-putting part about this entire industry. You can't enjoy the music or the artists in exclusion. It is a system, and in that system is a fandom, and that fandom is what generates the revenue for these companies. And unfortunately, that fandom is highly competitive. No surprise, the Korean culture is competitive, and so the fans inside Korea are equally competitive. And it's a blood sport. It's like a football. It's like everyone champion their own football team, and they get aggressive and they get violent and they're loyal to their team, and it gets really ugly. And it seems so petty, and no one would know unless you're digging into the depths of the Twitter sphere or the X sphere. But we've both seen how excessive the hatred and the vitriol can become online. And this is true on many subjects and many topics, but for some
Yes.
reason, the K-pop sphere holds special place in which fans become so diabolically aggressive. when it comes to defending their favorites or for hating other fans. It is crazy. It's a space that I never thought at the age I'm in I would have to or I would ever be in. I never thought I'd be in these spaces, but you read some of the stuff and it floors me. These are young kids a lot of the time. A lot of them are young. When you find out some are 15 years old, being the most violent, aggressive, horrific online trolls, and you just can't believe that this is coming from these children. And then that is what has been the most off-putting thing. And we talked about the possibility of going to CATs when I'm in Paris in 2 weeks, and since I'll be there. And we both agreed the fans are the reason I don't want to go. And maybe these K-pop groups might want to realize this, and maybe they don't care because we're not the ones generating the income for them. They are. But it's not about an age thing. And that is one, though. You probably wouldn't feel welcome. But two, there's just something about the craziness of fans in these areas where it becomes quite dangerous, in my opinion. Unfortunately, as much as I'd love to see them, I don't think it's a possibility. But have you ever experienced any hostility online
Oh
from
my God.
fans and
I'm not on K-pop Twitter, and I mean X.
but
And
once upon a time you were, and I'm curious for you to tell people, like, things did you see or hear? Because I mean, it's
pure,
traumatic. It's quite traumatizing when you.
pure evil.
Mm.
I mean, people wishing people to die because they dared say, "Okay, I didn't like this comeback," or not criticizing the artist itself, but himself or herself, but the music. I don't want to remind because I don't want their followers to come after me. The crazy bunch. One time I said that I thought that this group, I didn't understand their success because I didn't see that they were extraordinarily talented individually or as a group personally. But then, it's not only in K-pop, it's in the music in general. You have some successes that are surprising compared to the talent that there is out there. But it's the vitriol and I saw interaction between fans. I was reading between, because after a while, I would write to you. I would address you. I was not interested by these people. They're crazy. They're dumb. A lot of them are dumb and unhinged. I think that the industry of K-pop is capitalizing on that because they are so, they want their idols to be number one, so they'll buy 100 physical albums just to make them number one or number two or number three. I don't know if they even listen to the album. I don't think so.
There's nothing to play a CD on, Linda.
So I'm not gonna throw a blanket and generalize on all the K-pop fans because it would be unfair. But the other day I was checking something and I came upon one of these and again, the hype fans and the SM fans and I mean they're not only fans of the group now, they're fans of their companies, and it's like, you're crazy, get a life. And in the beginning I thought it was 15, 16-year-old girls, but then I see some girls, because you see them, if you follow NCT 127, usually there's some fan that you're gonna encounter regularly on Twitter, on X, and it was Twitter when I said bye bye to K-pop. It was Twitter then. I'm talking to the online craziness. I think the industry takes advantage of all these people. And I remember I saw girls who were saying, yesterday I just graduated from my second master or my PhD, or I finished my bar exam. And I said, now, please God, don't tell me these women are not 7, 8, because if they're 14 or 15, it's okay. They have a crush on a guy, on one of these K-pop idol, and anyone who says a bad word, it's like, it's okay. They're in that age group that, emotions and are whatever, but you're like a 30 or 28-year-old girl and you're that crazy.
Well, there's 40-year-old women that are following them around. I mean, the fans are one thing. The online fan And aggression is one thing, but then there's also the stalkers that just stalk the sussings, and I've never seen anything like it. Now, obviously, groups have always had stalker fans. Fans are always a little bit crazy. This is not unusual. This is not unique to the K-pop space, but there is something very maligned about the K-pop stalker that is unlike anywhere else. And I think it probably has to do with Korean law, which is very, very backwards at dealing with these sorts of matters. A lot of the time, the stalkers are familiar with the artists, as in the artists know who they are. Sometimes it's deliberate to create hype. And I think this is the problem. They do it to create hype and marketing, and yeah, and it just creates a profile of these artists as being heavily wanted and desired, right? So it creates the hype. So they deliberately don't do anything about these stalkers because they know who they are, and they're deliberately telling them someone from inside's leaking information to where the guys are. And this is what, again, it's just, it shows a real vulnerability of the actual artists involved here.
Oh,
That the artists themselves, half the time, have no autonomy, no power. They are totally controlled. That's why I said they literally, it's a job, and they work for a company, and that company controls every single thing of their lives, even their personal lives. Then that is the other unique thing about K-pop, is that they're not allowed to have any. I mean, they are an asexual doll, basically, that is there to be desired by all and had by none, and they are available for all, but they cannot have their own personal
but yeah,
life.
the illusion has to be kept alive. Marry me. Are you marry? Are you gonna marry me? I mean, who believes that guy that you've never met is gonna marry you? But you know what's worse in all of that is that they have some kind of influence on the company, because you know the group Rise.
Mm,
There were seven, and this guy, which I think is one of the most, they're all talented. Um, they're all talented. I'm not gonna every single one of them, but one of them's Sangan, who vocally rap, dance. I mean, he had everything for him. He was caught in a picture kissing a girl. I mean, the guy is like what, 19, 20. I hope he kissed a girl. I would be very, very, very worried if any of these guys had never kissed a girl. I would be worried. No, frankly, I hope for them they have a healthy sexual life. No, no, really, because it's their age, their hormones and everything. I hope they have a girlfriend. I hope they're in love. I hope the best for them. Okay. The guy was removed from the group. Was removed from the group. He didn't rape anybody. He didn't sexually assault. No, he was on a TikTok picture or whatever. I don't know if it was a TikTok or Instagram with his girlfriend, or one because he smoked. You remember when I don't know if
yeah.
it was Taeyong who smoked or something. If they with a vape, if they find them with a, are you crazy?
Mm-hmm.
Are you insane? And there is this guy, because I've said it for a long, long time. There will be a time when psychiatrists and sociologists are going to do a deep dive into the K-pop fandoms. You know, I mean, if that's what it inspires you to be somebody mean and vengeful and resentful, listen to something else. You
Mm,
know, I mean, that's, you know, because K-pop is there. There is something like almost joyful about K-pop. You know, they
mm,
all, I mean, the guys are always smiling, and these contents that they give you, kind of inviting you to their personal lives and everything. And that's all you, I mean, that's all that comes out of you, that to hate somebody because they like somebody else.
mm.
Maybe I remember the anti-Taeyong, you know. If I complimented Taeyong, if I had the nerve, because for them it's the nerve, to say that when they're on stage, the only one I see is Taeyong. And I'm not saying anything that 100,000 other people didn't say, okay? Because it's an evidence. The guy has a charisma. It's like, you know, it's like a force, a supernatural force that just captures you. I'm not saying that the others are not good. I would get insulted. Well, Panini, Marx fans, or, and I never thought, huh?
Jaeun fans, yeah.
Jayon fan, and I like Jayon because I love his voice. You know, this baritone tone is so rare in K-pop, and he
Mm.
brought that test, and you can see he's musical. He's musical, this guy. I mean, they all. I like NCT 127. You
Mm.
know, I really like all of them. I think they're all super talented, and it's a well-made group, really well.
But I think I want to touch on what you pointed, which is exactly the difference between them and their fans and say ATs, because I don't think ATs fans are so
Yeah,
hostile
no,
to each other who happen to like one member over
no,
another
no,
for whatever
and they're
reason.
not even
Whereas
hostile to other
it's
K-pop group
just
fans.
NCT is quite toxic, and I'm not quite sure how it got that way as well. Yeah, they're very, and Blackpink and BTS. I mean, it all started with the army. I mean, if you call your fandom the army,
Army.
then that in itself is quite aggressive in and of itself. And we'll probably get hate for that too, and I couldn't care less. They are, but their power, their overwhelming power right now to silence opposition, to silence critique, to silence everyone is to dox you, to threaten you, to send you death threats. I mean, this is outrageous. This is something that needs to be discussed because it's really
And
problematic.
some people
But
are calling. Some people. I've seen a tweet. I think not long ago, where somebody said, "I mean, no one is like paying attention to the violence and to the mean spirit, you know." But like you said, that's something that's also, you know, I think wanted. I think the industry is not going to stop that because it serves them. But you're right, the 80s fan. I mean, I don't know about the other groups. I'm sure that there are other groups that have quite nice fans, but it's true that the 80s fan are not. I mean, I don't know if it's the group who inspires or if it's the opposite. But anyway, what I wanted to ask you is, what do you think is the future
of K-pop,
of K-pop? What do you see in the next 10 years? Do you think
yeah,
there is? I'm not talking within Korea.
I think
I'm
I
talking outside of Korea.
I think it's going to evolve as all things do. I think they're going to bring back artist autonomy. So the artists inside these groups who want greater say and greater to make a greater contribution to their own music. A lot of them, as we said, are talented musicians themselves. They want to have a voice, and this is what I want to talk about just to end up. Talking about Taeyong, what makes him so unique is that he's probably the first that has broken through those barriers to demand and really assert himself and be assertive for himself and his music because he's a prolific music writer. He works on his own with his own producer friends. There is friends, and he does it all in his own time, not on the company schedule, out of the company schedule. So usually when he's home alone or at those times, he writes his own music. And he's now released 2 albums, and he's obviously he did a big concert in Korea before he enlisted. But the point is, I think he's the future, as crazy as it sounds. And for a long time, we said, oh my God, what a wasted artist. You know, an artist like Taeyong. And if you haven't heard him, a lot of his stuff is on SoundCloud. As the stuff that's unreleased ended up on SoundCloud before the stuff that was released by SM was permitted to go on an album. And it had to go through this whole check, obviously, had to go through the SM check. But I think he's the future. He is going to break the ground that allows these young idols to actually assert themselves more with their company and say, I want to put my songs on that album. I want you to. And I think that's with Stray Kids and with ATs, they have a lot more autonomy coming through. So a lot of the raps and a lot of even New Jeans. I mean, Danielle, the Australian girl in the group, writes most all the raps. So she's writing a lot of the lyrics. She's always a contributor in the credits. So more and more these companies are allowing these groups to not just be a perfectly curated, manicured, put together group that they call the shots on. They're going to start permitting these young artists to have a greater say in their own careers and to represent themselves and their groups, to contribute to music writing and production, whatever it might be. I think that's the future. And I think once that happens, you're going to see a much more authentic K-pop emerge. Does that make sense? I mean, there already is a very big independent music scene in Korea that you would never know about if you didn't dig deep and find it. But there is
A podcast about that because I would love you to introduce me to
sure there's
some.
loads.
What I wanted to say first, there was already Big Bang. I
Mm,
mean, G-Dragon
yeah, and TOP.
wrote and produced many of their music.
Mm.
Taeyang also is very, very, I mean, they're all talented. What's his name? And what they're singing. I mean, there's no, you see, it's one. But what I wanted to ask you, not the future of K-pop as a genre. Obviously, K-pop is a craze outside of Korea. I'm not talking Asia, because Asia, K-pop was strong always in Asia. I'm talking about the rest, the West. Do you think this is a craze that's gonna last, or do you think this is just a trend? And like all trends, it needs to end, because that's the thing of fashion. You know, it's not fashion if it's
I think it's a trend for the West because we've only just been introduced to it. This isn't a trend. This is well-established industry in Asia, as you know.
yeah, yeah. No, I'm talking about the West. Yeah,
In the West, I don't think it's a trend. I think it will evolve. It'll just sit in the parallel with everything else slowly, slowly. And I think you're going to see when the K pop companies in Korea start adapting and opening up, if they're so willing. And I think they're going to have no choice because their own artists are going to start pushing back. Once they start opening up, you're going to see, I think, more and more marketing towards a more global audience, not just an Asian audience. I think the mindset of old, which was we're going to create this boy group for China and we're going to create this boy group for the Japan market, and that was the scope of their market. But now the market is global. You've got Taeyong. I mean, he puts stuff on SoundCloud and he's got fans from Africa to Argentina. I mean, it's global. And I don't see it going away. I think it'll just evolve. I think it's as established as Europop is, really. I mean, as I said, Europop's not going anywhere. There's still the European sound. It's still charting. You'll have the same artists doing that. I think it's the same. I don't think it'll change. Will it ever rival mainstream Western pop? I doubt it, because they're not. I mean, they're not singing in English, for one. So I think if you notice that if the K-pop groups start singing more in English, if the K-pop groups start learning English and communicating with fans in English and start marketing themselves to the West, I think it'll just be absorbed into a wider culture. I don't believe it's going anywhere.
I think why they enroll more and more English speaking members, because I think that's their objective, is to conquer. I mean, they already conquered it. I mean, they are charting on the Billboard 100.
Yeah, but
They
they're
are
not they're not mainstream in
no,
say
they're not.
they're not the UK
They're
or
not
Australia.
mainstream. They're
They're
not
not.
played on the radios. I
No.
mean, on the radio, they're not played because most of their songs
Only
are in. But
only
look,
BTS.
look,
Only BTS is
only
the only one.
BTS, only BTS and Blackpink. I don't listen to the radio really. I listen to a station that will not. I don't think they will play K-pop, but for example, if you take, I mean, Jimin is charting at the is charting at the top of the charts. Apate Apate, I mean, charting in the UK.
Yeah, that's
He was
Bruno
number
Mars.
2. Yeah, it's Bruno Mars. That's true. Bruno Mars helped a lot because he attracted his fans and her fans. And it's a song that young people like, why not? But me, at the end of the day, is the legacy. Is what are we going to listen to you in 500 years? Because I can tell you that in 100 years from now, they will listen to David Bowie, to the Beatles, I'm telling you, to the Rolling Stones, to Mozart, to Beethoven, I'm just to Ray Charles, to yeah. There are some music that is timeless. I mean, I listen to Billie Holiday. I'm not from that generation. I listen to Motown. Uh, so that's the only thing that I wonder.
Well, I'd wonder that for general pop music as a whole. Like, I mean, is
Today,
it? Am I
today,
going to remember Maroon 5, or why would anyone?
yeah, yeah.
No
No,
offense
no,
to Maroon
no, no,
5.
no. You're right. You're right.
Who's going to remember them? But you will in a nostalgic way, because if they're
Yeah,
instrumental in one's youth, and obviously for a lot of young girls and boys, right, these groups are part of their growing up.
yeah.
I mean, Jimin doesn't chart in the US without a single record played on the radio on his own. Okay, there's clearly excessive amount of fans that are buying this. So the interesting thing about K-pop is how big would it be had it gotten the traction and the platforms of mainstream media and broadcasting platforms to be able to be heard? That's the question we want to ask. Because if it's this big now with no platform, how big would it be if it was given the same airtime as Taylor Swift?
But listen, but look at the Latino music, whatever, Latin music. They're charting very well. I mean, on their charts maybe, but I will be okay listening to a song in Spanish. The radio will play it. The radio will play a Spanish song. Oh yeah, they will play it. I mean, Enrique Iglesias, come on. When Enrique Iglesias was at the top of the chart, his songs were on the radio all the time. Okay,
But we have to consider that Spanish is probably the world's common European language after English. Possibly Spanish is the next one in terms of, and is a very unique market. And I think singing in Korean really, hones in your fandom to just those who can understand. But I think in the day of the internet, in this day and age, every single fan who's non-Korean will read the captions on the music videos, will hear the little snippets of English. You're watching a show. I don't know if you're listening to the depths, unless we're listening to Taeyong's own music, listening to really want to find out what they're saying in the lyrics. But K-pop as a whole is a show. I think it's a movie script. For me, I watch K-pop. It's part of a movie. The artists haven't written the songs. It's a show, and I'm happy to enjoy it. As for Taeyong, different. He's a unique artist. He's speaking about his own experiences. He's writing from his own perspective. That I do wish I had the language to be able to understand. And this is someone who I wish could write in English, but he probably couldn't express himself the same way in English as he could in his own language. This is where cultural and language barriers do sometimes inhibit the ability of perhaps an artist like Taeyeon to break through the mainstream. He should be. He's incredible. Anyone who's seen him will know. Everyone has their own tastes, I guess. But clearly, Jonathan Anderson from Loewe saw something in him. Because having him be the face of Loewe, and why not? I guess we have to wait and see. But I'm going to wrap it up here. An interesting discussion. K-pop, there's a lot to talk about. We could talk for ages about Korean culture and my experiences living there. And I was going to say about Squid Game. It's very popular. And one of the scenes was filmed literally down my street, which is kind of hilarious. Yes.
But I think that K-pop really, what K-pop brought to the Korean culture. A lot of people go to Korea, to Seoul, because of K-pop. A lot of people are interested in the Korean culture in general, or cuisine, or whatever, anything Korean. Thanks to K-pop. I was looking at numbers in billions of the tourism that was initiated by K-pop fans and everything. So it's I see it personally. I wonder what is going to be the next trend.
Let's see.
I see it. Maybe I'm wrong. We live at a time where everything is so.
I think everything's rapidly changing, but I also think everything's rapidly fusing. We're not going to be able to distinguish real artists from AI soon. We're not going to be able to distinguish anything. So at this point, we should just relax and be entertained.
Exactly. Anyway,
all right.
It was a pause from politics. Even with the crazy fans and everything, it's still more enjoyable.
I totally agree. Do you have a what the F this week?
I have a what the F, but I don't want to say it because I don't want to
ruin the positive
There's so much
vibe.
What the F. There's so many. Selena Gomez crying. She's got 5 houses in California, 2 I think in Texas, and a huge apartment in New York. She could, instead of crying in front of her telephone, because when I cry, when I'm really sad, I don't film myself usually. But that's what the fuck, Selena. Okay. Everybody cut you in a very fake thing. If you want to help some people, on that issue, I'm not 100% for deporting all the Latinos and everything, except for the criminals. Personally, that's my point of view. And you, what's your what F?
My what the F. Okay, my what the F would be Trump putting tariffs on everyone. It's like he's firing Trump tariff everywhere. So when he put tariffs on Canada and Mexico, that was my what the F moment, because I thought NAFTA was called the North American Free Trade Area to eliminate trade barriers, and there's Trump. So I was just left a bit what the F.
But exactly. Anyway, it was nice. I'm happy that we've discussed and that we've revealed how we met. That's why we are moods at the beginning. But then no, that's how we met. But that's not how our relationship evolved. Anyway, So Taeyong, don't think it's only about you. But anyway, you were the start.
Yeah.
So it was nice, and I'll see you soon.
See you. Bye.
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 Have a nice week. Oh,
You
please like and subscribe.
Yes, please do. Please do.
Please, please, please.
Happy to have this conversation.
Share and comment. We welcome your comments, even if you don't agree with us. It's fine. We want people that don't agree with us.
Exactly.
It's more exciting.
All right.
Bye. Have a
Bye.
nice week. Bye.
Bye.